Greetings, Clausewitz here. So in this What Means video I want to talk about light infantry. I already covered the heavy infantry in such a video, and both subjects are very much connected to each other. Actually, when you kind of look up one of those terms, you actually find or get a mention for the other one. And of course it makes sense, because we're talking about infantry, and it's really like the two words, heavy and light, are basically very connected to each other, obviously. So it makes sense that those both terms show up together if you look into one of them. So the thing is, I also find a Wikipedia article on light infantry. The problem is it has a similar issue like the heavy infantry one, that the sources were very limited. And in this case, even that the few sources they had were basically all were actually about like the Napoleonic era. So, but we talk about the whole of military history, or the whole of military history we have information of. And so this is what I firstly don't like here. But if you look at their definition, at their description, what light infantry was, basically they described were infantry, so foot soldiers, which would also perform skirmishing tactics, or were called even skirmishers. So they would be forming a loose formation and shield the other infantry, like the large part of the army, the heavy infantry here in this case, when this is their definition, from ranged attacks, so basically from other skirmishers, and also like weaken or provoke the enemy with their own skirmishing tactics. And this is pretty much it. There's also the point in there that where they had like often not as well protective gears, or not so much armor, or even didn't have like heavy weapons or the same amount of weapons. Here's this same problem I raged about a little bit in my heavy infantry video. What means heavy armed, heavy armored? Because even in this in a specific context, it's very hard to tell. And so if you really want more in-depth arguments about those parts, about like the heavy armed and heavy armed point, go watch my heavy infantry video, because I really go in a detailed argument about that in there. Regarding the loose and tight formation thing again, I also described in my heavy infantry one how actually very like infantry would consider heavy infantry, or were considered heavy, actually would also fight in a more loose formation, or that basically light infantry also could perform a very tight formation. How actually we would redefine the tight, dense, or a loose formation? At which point does it start? And so basically this is also my main argument in heavy infantry. But like I said, watch it if you want a very detailed argument here. And I say at this point already, we shouldn't just concentrate on those things, because this can also be so much circumstantial based. So actually I can have my hoplites, I could let them perform a very loose formation, because it is necessary or even not otherwise doable for them to perform any form of task. Because of the terrain, for example. This is the reason why we should go away from things which can change so quickly just through terrain, or just through the composition of the own or the enemy army, or just through the kind of weapon. Because like I said, you want to use those terms universal throughout time, throughout different states and people. The definition on Wikipedia really emphasized the skirmishing considering light infantry. And this is also where I actually disagree on, because longbowmen, English longbowmen, Greek peltasts, and even like Japanese ashigaru or Japanese samurai could perform like skirmishing tactics in the same meaning as I used, but also like it's described in there, like harassing enemies and shielding from other harassment on infantry, and could on the same battlefield, in the same battle, could perform melee duties, basically support with melee weapons, or flank the enemy with melee weapons, or just fortify themselves on a position to really give fire support, to actually use killing power throughout the fight to reduce the enemy, and not just to harass or provoke him, really just to kill, to make his whole combat performance even less and less, so victory can be achieved. And this is where I really say like it doesn't make sense to focus on skirmishing so much, because we have so many examples of troops which we wouldn't say as heavy infantry as from the definition of Wikipedia, or even from perspective of my definition, but could like do so many things which is not to do with skirmishing anymore. So I propose here what light infantry should be. Light infantry, and how I will use this word basically in my video. So light infantry were foot soldiers, which were very flexible, basically through their equipment, their fighting style, the formation. It doesn't matter through what, but through their organization, equipment, and everything, training, they were flexible and different to perform different combat tasks or battlefield tasks, and but they couldn't perform the whole duty of heavy infantry. Basically, we have to be clear that if we find troops, which is basically like heavy infantry, but has additional tasks on the battlefield, they still heavy infantry. I would say they are very flexible heavy infantry, or heavy infantry which could also like skirmish, for example. Would be then how I would describe those hybrid troops of antique Greece, which could like perform also a phalanx and then also skirmish with javelins. I would call them actually a heavy infantry which could skirmish, and you would know what I mean. Or heavy infantry with ranged capabilities. And the same thing is here, but it's not the same like for longbowmen. Longbowmen I would just call that infantry, because they couldn't hold the line on their own against like knights in the charge on their horses, or even like charged men at arms and stuff like that. They didn't have so high defensive. Even if they would like form up a tight formation, they had so little shields and not as much body armor but to really actually even the odds out for them in certain terms of protection. And same, but you can same so like for samurai troops, which would be like fighting with their bows primarily, because often they actually wouldn't wield the same armor as like the other samurais, more for the melee fighting, because they needed vision, because they needed the room on their body and also the flexibility for the body to really pull all the bows they had and everything. And of course they didn't want to exhaust themselves so much, they could retreat easier. But it doesn't matter how, if it's because they're in a loose formation, or if it's because they had light equipment in terms of weight, or if they just had different training or so. So like I said, it's really important to know that light infantry was not heavy infantry, which is also very flexible in their tasks on the battlefield and can quickly respond to it. And then we find all the things we see in history, like why they would fall often in loose formation. Because in loose formation it's so much easier to quickly turn into another direction, or really just keep running and change directions and everything. Because you have, of course, like I said, if we have pikes and interlocking shields, you can't just like go another direction. You really have to change the whole formation on its own, and this also needs training. So like infantry, when you are loose, you just can't start running there and everything. It doesn't matter if people would start to like go on top of on top of each other when they as in form of distance. It doesn't matter. They are a body, still maintain a body which is enough for their fighting style, but of course can easily overrun. They didn't have the same defensive capabilities. And of course, please note, it's all in the context of the time, because longbowmen had of course so much defensive. I actually would say they would be heavy infantry with skirmishing or range capabilities, because they had partially plate armor, they had mail, they had bucklers and stuff like this. And yeah, so I think this is very important here and very easy to use, because I can give you an army and say, oh, those guys here were heavy infantry and those guys here were light infantry which could also skirmish. Then you would see how they could be used. You already had a behavior in mind and everything, and you can't be confused anymore, and you can use it throughout time. Pelters would by this definition be light infantry, longbowmen would be light infantry, ashigaru, if they could be light infantry. This is, like I said, could be when you put them with the right equipment there. It doesn't matter that you have to know the equipment. I can't just say to you, oh, this ashigaru here were light infantry, this ashigaru here were heavy infantry, or those samurai were light infantry. You would then know what they do. If I just say, oh, those were samurai, or those were knights, then you maybe don't know what this means. The same for knights. Knights can mean infantryman or cavalryman. Same for samurai. It can mean cavalryman and infantryman. And yeah, but like I said in my previous videos, if you have another idea for this, if you have something I overlooked, or a better version, how to use it, definition, everything, just give me your arguments. I'm happy to discuss everything and even change my opinion here. And this is very important to do. But if you like this video, if you enjoyed this video, then like it in this in this order, and please subscribe to my channel if you not already did. And I talk about military stuff here. Maybe you figured this out already, and hopefully see you soon.